Guys, time is running out. October 15th, 2025 is the date that Windows 10 officially reaches the end of its life. That means no more updates and no more security patches. Every day after that, your devices become more and more vulnerable and more expensive to maintain. Now, the truth is, this migration should have started a while ago, but if your team is still in the middle of this process or hasn't even begun, don't panic, this video is for you. We'll walk you through what you need to know to move to Windows 11 without the unnecessary disruption and how to avoid the common pitfalls that can turn a migration into an absolute nightmare. So stay tuned and let's jump in. Hey guys, just before we jump in, if you haven't finished or started your Windows 11 migration yet, don't worry, because it's important to know that Microsoft actually offers an extension program. So for about $60 for the first year per device, you can keep getting those critical updates even after Windows 10 officially goes end of life. But, and here's the issue, that price goes up every single year. It's meant as a temporary safety net and not a long-term solution. Because we're so close to the deadline, some organizations will have no choice but to use this option for part of their fleet or their entire fleet. If that's you, treat it as the bridge and not the whole strategy. Use the extra time to finish the migration properly.
For years, many of us believed Microsoft when they said Windows 10 would be the last version of Windows. That was the story. It was the promise at the time. It's not true anymore. So that basically meant no new versions, just ongoing updates. And yet, here we are. Windows 11 has arrived and Windows 10 is heading for the history books. Now, on October 15th, on that day when you come to work, support for Windows 10 has officially ended. This is not just a symbolic date, it's quite the hard stop. It means no more security updates, which is a biggie, and no more patches, no safety net. So any machine still running on Windows 10 after that date is very much exposed, and every you delay increases the risk to be compromised. Now, a change like this always feels like a shock to the system, but it is also an opportunity. Windows 11 isn't just a new look, it does bring performance improvements, it has better security, if you agree with it or not, it has new tools like AI-powered Copilot that actually make work faster and easier for your users. Or so Microsoft says. So yes, it's the end of an era, but it's also the start of something new. And that's quite interesting, because the key is making sure your IT teams takes this transition seriously and starts preparing for the migration and beyond. Because waiting until just the deadline and stopping anything related to this straight after the migration or deadline date, it just leaves you scrambling. Okay, so why should you care about this migration? Well, first and foremost, like we just mentioned, is security. Once Windows 10 support ends, there are no more security updates. This means that every vulnerability you discover after October 15th is in your systems pretty much forever. And we all know how quickly those gaps get exploited nowadays. So, second point is compatibility. Software vendors built for the future and not the past. Over time, you'll notice updates stop working. Newer applications won't install and users start missing out on features that actually improve their productivity and don't work against them. So suddenly it's not just about the security anymore, it's about the digital employee experience too. And third, which has always been a big thing, but even more nowadays, is the cost. Outdated systems always cost more to keep alive. IT teams spend more time troubleshooting, vendors stop supporting other older platforms, and every workaround eats into your budget and your team's focus. So when you add all of these points up, waiting isn't saving you anything, it's just really costing you a lot. And you're just kicking the can down the road because these risks and costs will only grow. So, big question, when should you start? Now, honestly, if you haven't already, the answer is quite simple. It's right now, because October 2025 is right around the corner. And migrations aren't a switch you flip overnight. They involve hardware checks, software compatibility, and user training, and a fair bit of coordination across the business. So waiting any longer will just pile up unnecessary pressure. So if you're already in the middle of the process, that's good. You've made a start, but this is the moment to double check your progress. Are you confident every device is accounted for? Do you know which ones are ready and which ones aren't, and where the risk still sits? Now, stick around because I'll have some advice on keeping that momentum going and avoiding the last minute surprises. And if you already completed your migration, congratulations, that's awesome. That's not a small task. In fact, I'd love to hear your thoughts actually. So what worked well for your team? What lessons did you pick up along the way? And drop any advice in the comments because I'm sure plenty of IT teams are tackling this right now and your expertise could really make a difference. So now we know the timing, which is starting right now, no delay. But the next question is, okay, where do you actually begin? So the first step is really getting clarity on your environment, starting with the hardware. Now, this is usually the first roadblock because Windows 11 has stricter system requirements than Windows 10. And while most modern devices will handle it, not all of them will. It's not about the basics like RAM or storage, though for a smooth experience you really do want at least 16 gigabytes of memory and 256 gigs of disk space. The real catch is features like TPM 2.0 and Secure Boot. That's why guessing or relying on static spreadsheets is not enough. You need real visibility into your fleet to know exactly which machines can make the move and which ones are dead ends. So this is where we come in with Applixture and two of our solutions. Instead of relying on outdated inventory lists or manually checking devices, Analytics gives you real-time visibility across your entire fleet. So you can instantly see which machines meet the Windows 11 requirements and which ones don't. Whether that's missing TPM 2.0, a secure boot not being enabled, or simply not having enough resources to run smoothly. And because it's live data, you're not working off a snapshot from pretty much 6 months ago. So that level of clarity means no surprises in the migration and no last minute panic trying to figure out why certain devices just simply won't upgrade. Now, once you know which devices are ready and which ones aren't, the next step is managing the process. And that's where Applixture workflow comes in. And that makes a big difference, trust me. So instead of juggling endless spreadsheets or tickets, Workflow gives you a very clear Kanban style board where every group of devices is tracked in real time. You can see at a glance which machines are Windows 11 ready and which ones need action and who's responsible for handling them. Because it's not about organization alone, it's about accountability and progress towards that end goal of the migration. Each task can be assigned, updated, and tracked directly so the whole team stays aligned. This means no guessing, no chasing updates, just a smooth, structured way to keep the migration moving forward. Hardware is only half the picture. The other critical piece is software. Even though Windows 11 has been around for a couple of years now and the technical differences from Windows 10 are relatively small now, you can't just assume everything will work out of the box. Applications your business depends on may behave differently or simply not run if they're not supported on Windows 11. And that's the kind of surprises you do not want halfway through a migration, or now that we're so close to the deadline date at all. So with Applixture Analytics and Applixture Workflow, you can build a complete list of applications running across your endpoints and check them against Windows 11 compatibility. So again, the key here is working with real-time data, not outdated records, so you can catch any issues before they hit your users. Now, it's really a small step, but it can save you so much unnecessary troubleshooting later on. So you've mapped out your hardware, you've mapped out your software, and you've got the right tracking in place. So, it's now really time to think about the actual migration process. Now, this is the big part. Now, there isn't a single one-size-fits-all approach here, because every organization is different, we all know that. But there are some best practices that can really help reduce the disruption and make the transition feel a lot less overwhelming for everyone involved. The goal isn't to get everyone onto Windows 11 as quickly as possible, even though that deadline is approaching very fast. The goal is to do it in a way that minimizes headaches for your users, keeps you, IT, in control, and avoids those last-minute fire drills that always happen when big changes are rushed. Alright, so migration process. Step number 1 is assessment. You need a clear picture of your environment before you can make smart decisions. That means looking at your hardware and software like we already discussed, and even the natural life cycle of your devices, because some machines might be due for replacement anyway before or just after October 2025. And if that's the case, you don't want to waste time migrating those. Just make sure any new devices you bring in are already running on Windows 11 out of the box. So the key here is to separate the devices that you'll upgrade from the ones that you'll replace and the ones that you can ignore because they're on their way out anyways. So doing this upfront, trust us, saves you from a lot of unnecessary work, and it just prevents you from running into last-minute surprises later in the project. Once you've assessed your environment, the next step is planning, and this is where things often make or break a migration. So planning means more than just picking the date. It's about the resources, the budgeting, and making sure you exactly know how each group of devices will be handled. So some machines can be upgraded in place, can or cannot. Others may need hardware tweaks, and some will simply be replaced. So you need a strategy for each. It's also important to think about timing. So if you've got devices scheduled for replacement close to the deadline, make sure you have a contingency plan. Those last cycle devices are always the highest risk, and you don't want to be scrambling when time's almost up, or after the deadline for that matter. And one more thing, just double check your inventory. Devices move between teams, get reassigned or quietly disappear from your official records. If you're only relying on your CMDB or asset list for that matter, you might be planning with outdated information. So this is again where live data, like what Application Analytics provides, really helps keep the plan grounded in reality. All right, with the plan in place, it's time to test it. And that's where a pilot migration comes in handy. So think of this as your dress rehearsal, moment suprême. So start small with a carefully chosen group of users and devices from different parts of the organization. Trust me, do that. The goal isn't speed here, it's discovery. You want to uncover the hiccups early while the impact is still low. So gather feedback from those pilot users, refine the process, and adjust your timelines if that's needed. You don't have a lot of wiggle room here, but let's work with that. And don't forget communication, because keep your pilot group in the loop about what's happening, why it matters, and where to go for help. In fact, this is a stage where feedback tools can be a lifesaver. So Application Feedback, for example, can collect input directly from users on their desktop in real time and see what's working and what isn't. Because that way, you're not just testing the technical side, you're also validating the user experience before you scale up, which is such an important part of this whole process. Once your pilot has proven the process and you've ironed out the bumps, it's time for the full rollout. This is where structure really matters, and start with the most critical systems first. Get those secured and upgraded early on. Now, in larger organizations, rolling everything out in phases is usually the safest approach. It just spreads the load for your IT team, reduces the risk of big disruptions, and keeps support manageable. Now remember, migration isn't about the technical upgrade, it's about the people using those devices every day. Keep training resources available, keep communication open, and make it easy for users to share feedback as an issue comes up. Because a technical flawless migration can still feel like a failure if users are left confused or unsupported. So, tools like Application Workflow and Feedback really shine here, helping you keep the process organized, track progress in real time, and hear directly from your end users as they move through that change. All right, to wrap this up, moving to Windows 11 isn't just about upgrading an operating system. It's about making sure your organization stays secure, productive, and ready for the future. Now, the deadline is clear. That's October 15th, 2025. But the way you get there is by being proactive. Assess your hardware and software, plan carefully, and test with real users and their experiences, and keep the migration structured and user-focused. Now, if you're still on Windows 10, now is the time to act, not tomorrow. The sooner you start, the smoother the process will be. And if you've already completed your migration, congratulations, that's awesome to hear. But please do share your lessons in the comments, because your experience can actually help the IT teams who are in the middle of that right now. And if you'd like to dive deeper, check out the website where you'll find a written article on this topic authored by Peter Casilius. And you'll find more details on how Application Solutions can help you get clarity and structure around your migration. We'll leave all the links in the comments below. And finally, make sure to follow us for more content like this. And if you have any topics you'd like us to cover in future videos, let us know. We'd love to hear your input. So thanks again, happy migration, and catch you on the next video.